Good Saturday morning to you good people. Taking this vacation with the family. I've been itching to go for a walk on this trail for the last 4 days. So today I'm gonna do it. And I figure I may as well get some watch hours up and do a history lesson for people um, if they don't know the history of slavery in the United States of America. A lot of people will say that they do know the history of slavery in the United States of America. A lot of people will say it doesn't matter anymore, but it's important to understand where you came from in order to get where you're going. So right now, we're staying at an unnamed resort because I don't want no doxing some of bitches because there are some on here with nothing better to do with their lives and they're miserable to say, oh, well, I ain't doxing. It's just a joke. But there's some weirdos out here. But it is an unnamed resort that you can visit in Virginia where it's a former slave plantation. And there's a site on the resort where you can go tour slave burials. Now, I grew up not too far from here, and I lived most of my life in this area. But if some of you guys who are watching, if y'all know what area I'm talking about, you can put it in the chat. I ain't worried about no doctors. But I grew up pretty close to this area, so just going for this walk is pretty nostalgic because I've never been here. Imagine having all of this history right at your footsteps and you never even took advantage of it. So it's a massive plantation, and I'm not sure what crop that is. If you guys see what crop that is, you get an idea, put it in your put it in the comment section. But everyone knows the story about 1619, the first slave African was brought to the United States of America. Well, that's not true because America didn't exist. The United States of America didn't exist at the time. The first African slave was brought to the British colonies in the Americas. From 1619 to 1787, African slaves or slaves who were descendants of Africans worked and helped build and shape what then became the United States of America. I know some people are quick to say 400 years of oppression. Well, let's date that back. So you're talking about 1600. So 1619 would theoretically be 400 years of oppression in the United States of America or in the Americas, but not in the United States of America because our country did not have an official government until 1787. We had the Articles of Confederation, sure, but we were not the United States of America. So realistically, America had an operating system of slavery from 1787, United States of America from 1787 until 1865, a legal protected operation of slavery. I'll pay attention to what I just said right there, and I'll explain what that means a little bit later. I have shared it before, and I will share it again, that no other race or ethnicity has endured what Black America has endured in the United States of America. Whether you like it or not, whether you agree with me or not, whether you support me or not, you cannot dispute the facts of history that no other race of America. Good morning, KTC. Welcome, and hopefully you enjoy this nice country walk with me. I'm still trying to figure out what crop this is, though. It's not corn. It's not tobacco. Albeit this was once when it was an operating slave plantation. It was a tobacco plantation. So in Virginia, tobacco tobacco was the largest crop that was sold to foreign countries in the United States next to cotton. The reason why slavery was so strong in the state of Virginia was because tobacco was its most profited, the most productive. 75% of all United States exports were related to slave related labor. I don't argue to the point of slavery was a racist practice because we really changed the definition of racism. Let's see this message was held for review. Slavery was cool. Good for you. But let your family deal with it and put your family in it. But I'll show that stupid comment. So, but slavery was a marketable, profitable business, not for the South, but for the entire United States of America. So when it came time to make the decision to end slavery, which was led by Christian abolitionists, that was one of the major pushbacks from the United States government, because how would we supplement the loss of income? Then we figured out we can do sharecropping. Type one in the chat if this is a beautiful, God, dog, it's a beautiful view. This is gorgeous. I'm telling you guys, if you ever get in one of these areas, go for this walk. There's nothing more peaceful. And if you want to support the Fake Teach Fund, the Cash App is money sign MHBT83. It's in the description. If you want to enjoy this history lesson. 5, you roughly had 6 generations of slavery. A generation amounts to 20 years. So let me see. So yeah, 87, 27. Well, 4 generations. So 4 generations of slave were born under the United States government. Now, why is that important to an education channel? For renowned educator up in Boston, Massachusetts, stated that a mother is the first teacher of a child. Here in the state of Virginia, after the Nat Turner Rebellion in 1831, which happened happened east of here, the state of Virginia, the Virginia General Assembly, the government under which the local or state government under which the Commonwealth of Virginia operated, banned and forbid the slaves to have access to any educational information. They made it illegal for slaves to read and write. They follow suit of the 1740 Negro Acts that were passed in South Carolina, which was in response to the Stono Rebellion. So now, not only did you interrupt people's ability to decide if they wanted to work for someone, you also interrupted their ability to have an education that they could pass on down to their children. They couldn't pass down an inheritance. The one thing that a person should be able to pass down to their children should be an education. But the slave was denied that opportunity and that right by their state government. This is the reason why I am an advocate for education reparations. I know that R word is such a hard word for some people to hear, but we had a system, a government system that was legally put in place that prohibited the right for slaves or the access for slaves to even learn. And you wonder why our children are left behind because we're still generationally trying to catch up to these things. Slaves, despite it, I thank God my kids got a higher education. Yeah, and they're making the higher education system worse and worse for our kids because they are now, when black kids started being able to compete in these educational institutions and be able to go to these higher educational settings and compete for jobs based on saying, hey, my qualifications are just as good as this person's qualifications. You know what they did? They created degree mills. They created these low functioning systems where you can get the same education it used to take 4 years to obtain, maybe 5, and now you can get it in a year or 3 weeks. So when someone who's qualified goes through the 4-year program, they're now competing with somebody who went through a 1-year program, and that person who went through the 1-year program can get the job that the person who went through the 4-year program wanted and worked so hard to get based on the fact that that person might know somebody. So now you can't say, well, they're not qualified because they got the same degree theoretically. Oh my God, that's beautiful. It's quiet, it's peaceful. I'm not worried about getting attacked. I'm not worried about getting jumped. I'm not worried about getting robbed. I'm not worried about anything except minding my business on this walk. Wanted to take my truck, but they said you can't take your truck. You got it. It's a trail, so you got to walk. Even though my truck looked like it could fit through here. But back to the history. So Civil War ends in 1865. See, for review. I ask nurses before they stick me how long they've been. Hey, listen, you got to ask that. The better question would be is where did they get their nursing degree? Or a better question would be how long did it take them to get their nursing degree? If they say that they got it at DeVry, you take that IV out your arm and you take off running and get the hell out of there. But back to the history. So in 1865, after the American Civil War ends, and 4 generations of Africans, former descendants of Africans, were impacted educationally, religiously, and emotionally under an evil system that God condemned. Okay, we then were thrown into this realm of do it yourself. Sure, they had the Freedmen's Bureau and they had other institutions, and they created some of these HBCUs for Africans. Now, imagine creating HBCUs immediately, like I think Howard University was built in 1866, which is in DC, and they expected a population of people who had been forbidden the access to education for the previous 30 years to suddenly come in and become scholars. And that's why you have the small percentage of elitists within our communities and in our culture who think that they can tell us what they can do. Thank God for Booker T. Washington for realizing it and doing it the right way of building vocational trade programs, education access to for people to become teachers. See, that's why I will listen to Booker T. Washington any day before I listen to elitists like W.E.B. Du Bois. But from 1865 until 1965, or well, 1954, but realistically 1975, you had a whole legal government in the South that restricted access to education, restricted access to law enforcement, restricted access to all the public service programs that were designed to help the communities. So if you look at it that way, from 1787 to at least 1965, you're talking about generation upon generation upon generation of descendants of Africa being impacted through a corrupt system of slavery. We have people of who endured the atrocities of the Holocaust, and their grandkids are still facing the residual effects of that. So why is it impossible to think that a system that was far long standing, far long lasting than the Holocaust, why do we think that would not impact generation after generation after generation after generation? And people don't get it twisted. When I say slaves built this nation, I want you to look at what I'm talking about. There were no tractors out here. There were not any mechanical plows out here. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about because I know the history of John Deere with the steel plow. There were no mechanical reapers out here, reaper machines. The main source of machinery or labor was that of humans who were in the United States of America through ancestral enslavement. And states like Virginia primarily benefited from that. That's pretty. It's a weed, but it's pretty. Type one in the chat if you're enjoying this history lesson. On a side note, I've been listening to your BS rambling for a bit. Blames racism on everything. You got more rights than me as a white man. We all built this nation. Go be the change of your community and stop pointing. Okay. So not one time when earlier, so if you've been listening to Rat and JND 23, back up and listen to the part where I said that the institution of slavery wasn't directly racism, but it was a system of financial benefit to other nations. Now, congratulations to you and your race for helping to build this nation as well. White people played a substantial part in it, but no other race in American history was placed in enslavement for as long period of time as those who are descendants of Africa. You may get upset with what I'm saying, and you have a right to get emotional and feel like you don't like to hear it. But historically, it's not woke, it's not DEI. It actually is what's learned in conservative institutions, like the one I attended. It's a fact. So my thing is this: if it's too hard for you, and I'll leave that comment up. It's not a problem. But if it's too much for you to bear, and it's too hard for you to endure, then swipe up. But I'd like for you to stay. because, and I'd like for you to share with me and say, well, male O, you are lying. The male O, you are lying. If you can say I'm lying and I ask you how, you can point out to that reason. I didn't say America wasn't the greatest nation in the world. I will say that no other race in American history endured the institution of slavery the way that the African descendants did. And that's a fact. One of the nice things about doing this walk is if I weren't talking, I'm pretty sure there's a large population of white-tailed deer around here. So I'm not in the condition of saying, John Lovato, you've been sharing some pretty racist things that I've been hiding. So I don't care about those pieces, but you do have a right to share that opinion. Whites suffered so much on how? How? You can share how. That'll be phenomenal, actually. But I'm not going to, I'll answer those questions. But in terms of calling blacks monkeys and things that you've been sharing, um, that shows much more about you. Our whipping wrist hurts. Okay. So, so yeah, and that's the age where we are. That guy John's probably 43, 44, 45, and all he does is live to swipe on the internet and troll and claim victimhood and take out his frustrations about the failures of life that he's endured on other people and strangers on the internet. So now, this is a preserved slave house. It's not a barn, by the way. This is actually a preserved slave quarters. It's 2-story level slave quarters where the slaves slept in. Now, can I go in there? I don't know. Will a bear jump out on me? If it does, call 911 for me, please. But let's look in here and see. Let's see if it'll open up. Yeah, there it is. So this is a, I see they store some stuff up in here. But this was a 2-level slave quarter. They haven't remade it or they haven't refurbished it so people can see what it probably would have looked like in the 1700s or 1800s, the early 1800s when the owners of the plantation held it. There's a nice healthy hornet's nest, I think, so I need to close this up. And I'm gone. Not off of here, but I'm walking out of here. Yeah, yeah, I don't play with hornets, and I can't outrun them in these woods. But this is a 2-story slave quarters. So imagine being forced to devote your entire life to the subservient sustainability of another race in a country that you're not even permitted to travel freely since that country's inception. So much so that legally southern states tried to revolt by using the Supreme Court and judicial, that's a big word that some of you folks can look up, who are coming in here getting mad at me over telling the truth, through the Dred Scott decision by Chief Justice Roger Taney, to try to say, well, we know even if the descendants were to grant this, huh, check one, if you can hear this. I think I'm starting to lose a little service as I walk a little further, but they still would not be granted their freedom. I mean, they still cannot be granted citizenship, even if they are free, because of the superior complex that these so-called Christian slave owners held in regards to their subordinate races that they oversaw. I don't do that black. Can you hear me now? Type one in the chat if you can hear me. Okay. Yeah, I must hit a dead spot. So should have brought me some off spray. I hope you can buy a moccasin out here. So in Virginia we call them moccasins. Some people call them cotton mouths, but we call them moccasins. The difference between the two, but all I know is they're moccasins. That's why I got these bugs flying around, because I'm down here by this water. Man, this is peaceful. Other than these bugs flying around me, peaceful as hell. But I might have to call my wife to bring meet me somewhere. Hell, I don't know how she's gonna meet me. Damn it, I got the keys. I want to do a slight correction. Earlier, I said it's the two-story slave quarter. It was this room here that was the two-story slave quarter. Carlos Martinez. Some people won't about it. What I appreciate about being a descendant of African slavery is the resolve took for Black Americans or Blacks to go from slave to citizen is one of the reasons that I wear this hat. Is one of the reasons that I am proud of my ancestral history. Is one of the reasons I didn't that I love the nation that I'm in. And you're sadly mistaken, Carla. Want to be funny? I'm pretty sure they knew how to make a pizza because they were the ones who were responsible with coming up with innovative ways to make food that people today love and eat. You know them oxtails that you probably love, and they overcharge, and that they overcharge now for you to buy. Slaves mastered the art of making those because that was a part of their culture in other countries before they were brought here. You know those wings that everybody loves for the Super Bowl? The wing used to be a less desirable part of the chicken that they used to throw out, and that was the part that they would give their slaves for nourishment. So somewhere you should go on this walk like me and thank somebody who was enslaved and suffered the traumatic abuse of slavery. But yes, that's why I'm very patriotic towards this nation, because I feel like my ancestry and walking on these grounds right here alone, me growing up just down the road from here, my family being based out of this area, I feel like a closer connection because this is my ancestral history. And I don't mind it, but trolls, if you're gonna come and troll, hit the like button. So back to the history. So Virginia was a very unique state because although it is the state that had the largest number of slaves, although it is a state that had the largest number of slaves in it, it's also the state where a lot of the most historical endings happening. So, for example, um, the Brown versus Board of Education decision 54 that stated that stated that blacks could not be segregated in public schools any further. In Prince Edward County, Virginia, you saw the ugliness of that, where instead of following integration status, the white school board down there closed the entire school district. Prince Edward County is probably an hour from here, but they closed the entire school district for almost 10 years. So you literally had an entire school district or black students for 7 years without access to public education. Well, what about white people that didn't have access? They did. What they did was they opened up for cross school, and that school allowed free enrollment and tuition for students as long as they were white. Because it was a private school, they didn't have to follow by standards of um, the public school, the United States of America in terms of constitutional protections. Is there any question anyone wants to ask me on this live stream right now regarding the history of African enslavement in the United States of America? So we made our destination. This burial site is the site of, or we're almost to our destination, of where the slaves on this plantation were buried. Let's see this. Read this marker. In remembrance of the enslaved and freed people of Berry Hill Plantation, I just docked myself. The monument serves to honor those who toiled these grounds. May your souls forever find rest, and your stories always be known. Oh, this was dedicated 2022. Should have brought some off spray. Whew. So this is Diamond Hill Cemetery. And this is where slaves, when they were deceased, not necessarily killed by their master, this is where slaves were brought and buried. Whew. In silence we remember and regret. The chains are gone. The wind-swept trees whisper forever your fate. Rest in peace. But Melo, where's the headstones? Where are the memorial benches? Where are the wreaths? Obviously, time would erode most things, but you see some type of headstone marker here, right? Show them to you. The only way people knew about these areas or could know where a slave was buried is by looking at the stones. The stones. This is how they marked the burial plots of slaves. Stones. There are stones all throughout this area. That's how you know where the slaves were. And if you knew where the main house was, you'd see why this is like crazy, how far slaves had to, people had to come just to bury their loved ones. Yet they gave so much labor to the family on this plantation. However, they were honored in memory of stones on their graves. Thank you all for taking this walk with me, this important historical walk with me. Let's put you in. There we go. and I'll let you guys walk back with me. Um, well, the only thing I don't like about this walk is one, I didn't think it was going to be this daunting of a task. So instead of wearing flip flops, I would have wore sneakers, and then also I would have carried some off spray. So now when I get back to my room, I have to take a shower because it's high tick season, and they got a bunch of different illnesses. Well, two different illnesses out with tick-borne diseases. If you get bit by a tick and you don't immediately treat it, so I'm going to have to make sure that I take care of that when I get back to my room. Yo, salute to you. Uh, I don't know if yeah, salute to you, Nacho. Salute, brother. Hey, thanks for your support earlier, and giving respect to my family, man. That's just some real life stuff because some folks can say and do and think anything they want, but at the end of the day, it really is about supporting your family and being proud of what you have and not looking down on people. Like I said, you can hate me because of the clothes I wear. You can hate me for the way I talk. You can do everything like that, but you can't hate me for you can't hate me for you know being blessed with a family that that I love and that loves me. Woo! Lord have mercy. I don't even know if I want to go back through there. I might want to take this right here, but I don't even know where this is gonna go. So we'll walk a little ways here, and then I'm gonna go back on that trail. And that's another thing. There's been this big ass bee or swarm, whatever it is. There you go. I got your ass now. That's been following me for the last hour. And I think everybody in their family, get in touch with your family's history and its roots and know where they come from know where you come from. Because if you don't know where you come from, how in the hell are you going to know where you're going? So I can't do this down in Florida where I live because if I do this down in Florida, I'm going to fall into some water that I'm not going to expect. And I'm going to have some alligator bite my head off. And then after the alligator bites my head off, a python's gonna wrap itself around me and kill me. And if after the python does that, then a coral snake's gonna bite me and put venom up in me. Basically, I'm saying it's a lot of shit. I actually had a black bear, walk in my backyard while I was sitting there watching, just looking out my lanai, and it literally walked in my backyard 3 weeks ago. Florida is the wild, wild west, and we have black bear out here too. So if I get mauled by one. But back to the history lesson. Is there any questions that you guys have on this live about descendants of African slavery here in the United States of America? Now, mind you, the slavery in Virginia would look greatly different than the slavery in Florida because cattle and sugarcane were the major crops in Florida. Slavery in Florida would look vastly different um, than it did in Texas. Oh, I'm in Virginia right now. So this walk you can go on. It's actually a resort, but it's built on a slave plantation, and you can walk a trail to go see the slave burials. You can also see some of the old slave houses. You can it's pretty dope. It's pretty dope. The family's still, resting and everybody's still chilling. But this is it's pretty cool, man. So we're gonna leave in a few to head on back down to the Sunshine State. But it's been really really cool. I would say because I think you're in Georgia. Um, if you ever get a chance, go visit. Is it Andersonville? I think that's where the prison was in the for the Civil War. Now, but I think Andersonville may have been Northern Prison. But I got to double check and see. But I know one of those prisons was really brutal. Now, one of the commissions of the Confederacy was not to take soldiers prisoner. I mean, black was not to take black soldiers prisoners, but instead they were to be executed uh, and not treated as soldiers. So that was a decree from the Confederacy in 1862 when they found out slaves were actually fighting with the Union in the American Civil War. So slave soldiers or black soldiers couldn't even be treated as prisoner exchanges. They were to be executed immediately, such as the case in Fort Pillow, Tennessee, where a group of slave soldiers or a battalion was surrounded by Confederates who were on the top of a hill, who instead of ordering their surrender, they shot them to death. Um, well, I got to look at the history of that particular area. I would imagine that Brunswick probably was more of a naval for the Civil War or for the South because of its location by the water, um, which is probably why they built that naval base out there. We had so many plantation trips on the island. Yeah, man. Like you think about it, if you trace your history back far enough, there are contributions there, and this is what this is about people from the North is that they black from the North. They speak so definitively about folks like folks in the South, like me, folks like you, maybe other folks who don't look at someone who's white and use the C word and all this other stuff because they don't understand it. But then their families aren't far removed from this area as well. You know, not no African descendant of slavery, well, no person of African descent in the United States who is whose family was American generationally started in the North. Okay, in and the kid, let me bring you to the United States as a free person and labor for me up here. If they were brought here, it started on slavery. So, but you got to know your history. You got to know where you came from. You got to know the contributions of even those who are, because everybody at some point or another has some uh, percentage of white in the family. If I were to break down the percentage numbers, my mom's father would be considered 25%. His father was mixed, and his grandmother was white. So when we get into this, there's no pure African descendant. And, and I would argue it's not just they definitely need to know, I would argue is that we need to understand that's not an excuse to accept some of the things that other people have thrown on our society. I feel like the shower caps are a step backwards for us. I feel like heard something. I feel like the skinny jeans are a step backwards for us. I feel like the language, like for example, like in Florida, they'll say some shit like a bit tired. When they're really saying like a bitch tired, but they call themselves a bitch, but they'll say a bit tired. You use broken dialect as a cool bruh. I got flip flops on. I'm dumb as hell. But one thing I do know is God gave me feet, and these feet know how to be moved. So I already saw a hornet's nest up in that thing right there. So, so, but notice how the kids use broken dialect now, and it's supposed to be cool, popular. It almost reminds me of people intentionally misspelling or mispronouncing words. You see that on YouTube all the time. You'll have grown men and women mispronouncing words because either they don't know how to say it or they think it sounds cool to mispronounce a word. As if God did not give you the ability to speak and you didn't have access to education that your ancestors didn't have, so you know how to speak. But then they will call me a yak. Let me talk about that one real quick. Now, well, listen, if you do it now, at least catch what I'm saying, though. I ain't gonna judge not lest he be judged. But I had a lady say that about me, and I had to realize something. She didn't know what a heterosexual man with a vocabulary sounds like, because all she may have been used to, and a lot of our black women are used to, a man who will tell them to shut up, turn over, and go make me something. So, but I'm not here. This is not that channel. This channel is for education. So back to the education, back to the history. Oh boy, this is a nice. They said it was 1.4 miles to that cemetery. That's bullshit. 1.4 miles, maybe 1.4 miles halfway. But these crops, they weren't operated by machines. They weren't managed by machines. They were managed by the labor of slaves. I should have brought me some off spray. I didn't remember it being like this. I know if I went down to Florida and I walked through some woods, I definitely had to have some off spray. Whew. Yeah. Dude, did you not see what I just had to walk up? This 255 pounds right here I'm carrying. Yeah, let me catch the break real quick before I die. That's why people walk around saying, "Oh yeah, bear spray." But I wasn't worried about bears down around here. I know we got them down here, but I ain't worried about them. But um, you'll hear people say for the ancestry, they have no idea what their ancestry is. They'll come out here and they'll think. I don't like people who think of slavery just because they watch the movie Roots. Slavery was much more of a complex system. It was much more of a system that, like I said, the United States government economically benefited from. But nonetheless, this is why I love being from the South, because I can connect with this. I don't fear, and educationally, you can't walk with the guise of fear that people of other groups or ethnicities are still your enemy. Because one thing I learned about growing up in the South, and for people who grew up in small towns, you know this. Some of the people who worked hardest together were blacks and whites because both of them were poor in those small towns. Both of them worked factory jobs in those small towns. Both of them saw their factory jobs leave in those small towns. So that's why both of them, that's why some folks can get along with somebody who might have a Confederate flag tattoo, who have a Confederate flag on their truck. Not saying that's a good educated flag to have, but people do. Because there's a shared commonality with people in the South, whether you're black or white, and it might be shared through slave and slave master relationships. But somewhere there, you find that commonality from which you came. And you build on that. And you respect it. And you understand it. And over time, you might even learn to appreciate it. Because no matter what, your character was built. My character was built in these type of fields with my ancestors. People are more forgiving to foreigners from Brazil than they are to white Southerners in the United States, without even knowing that Brazil was the last country in the American continent to end slavery in the 1880s, 20 years, over more than 20 years after the United States ended slavery here. But tell me about the culture. Because in some of those countries, the darker you are, the poorer you are, the more mistreated you are, the more injustice there is. It's crazy. Part of me wants to know if I walk down that way, what I'm gonna run into. I don't know. I ain't risk. Oh, but Nacho, shout out to you guys too, man. Um, I was sneaking, popping in and out. Well, not sneaking, but I was popping in and out because because my people were out and about. But I saw y'all guys had like at one point over 500 people in y'all live, man. That was dope. So salute to that, man. I'm glad to support that channel because y'all guys are two good brothers, man. And I appreciate the support that you all give, especially when I talk about this education piece, man, because I really want to see us improve our education condition. Um, in the United States of America, we are a failing education system. 40% of our kids can't read. 45% of our kids can't do a times table. And sometimes we get on here arguing about some of the stupidest things in the world when our whole kids and we have a whole generation that's about to be lost, that we're expecting to pay for our social security, take care of us when we're old, feed us when we can't feed ourselves, and do things that we used to do and we used to understood as being right or wrong or common sense. We have kids today who want to make TikTok videos but they know how to make a TikTok video, but they don't know how to go and crack an egg and put it and make it in a pan. We have mothers today who know how to go through a drive-through at McDonald's but don't know how to prepare a meal for their child. Wonder why we have obesity. Wonder why we have all of these different diseases or ailments within our children right even before they reach the age of 20. I was riding up here to Virginia, and my son asked me. Oh, and hey, listen, I stopped at Bucky's in Brunswick, and that's my spot. Every time I stop, I got to get that brisket sandwich, man, because I think that's the only one I pass by, anyways. But I was riding up with my son, with my oldest son asked me a question. He said, "Dad," he said, um, what was the question? It was something important to what I was saying. I started thinking about Bucky's, and I lost my damn mind. What did that man say to me? It'll come to me. Ancestors, give it to me. What did that young man say to me? But the ancestor said, nah, we don't know either. But anyway, he had said something that was really profound to me, and I can't think of it. But this is the reason why we have so many challenges and issues that we have in our society, because we get caught on things that don't matter. We get caught on things that lack substance. We get caught on things that are trivial. And so, like I said, you guys saw me on that other content, and you saw me trying to engage in a dialogue with a lady, and the whole time she called me fruitcake, she called me the ag, all these different things, because we have built an insecurity in society that a heterosexual man with a vocabulary is foreign to a lot of the tragedy in our communities and in our societies that need to be corrected in order for our children to have a chance and have hope and believe in themselves and see things, to see the benefits of having black male educators, to see the benefits of, I can be an asshole without being called a bad teacher. I can be a some bitch without people saying that they should call my boss. I could be a jerk without somebody saying you shouldn't be around kids. But this is where we are. We're so mind blown that because we don't like somebody, we don't see the value in what they can bring or what they've brought or who they are. Salute to you, Dish and Dirt, real talk. Crazy, my lady just said she saw your video at Bucky. Oh, did she? Yeah, man. Listen, that Bucky's was hitting. I'm telling you, listen. Hey, I'm gonna give a plug for the Bucky's in Brunswick. Well, all the Bucky's, anyways. If you pass through, make sure y'all drop off and make sure y'all check it out. It's crazy busy up in there. So some rude ass people, not the workers, but some of the people, was rude as hell up in there. But I mean, but that's okay. But we have so much that we offer, and this is why I created this educational channel with Mel O, because I don't want to be attacked with arguments and pay bickering. There's so much more our kids need, our siblings need, our our aunts and uncles and everybody who needs, that we can give them. Think about the talents that everybody on YouTube bring. And then you ask yourself, are you going viral for those talents? I certainly would like to go viral from this channel. I certainly would like to work on my articulation or clarity of how to really get to the point without dragging it on, or how to speak without over talking and letting the audience participate as well. I certainly want to work on my um my computer or technologically savviness or whatever, because I want people to look at my resource as a place to say, this is a place you learn about autism. This is a place you can learn about children being protected from bad people. This is a place you can learn about um, academic growth, just in general. And I think if everybody who came into this chat, even some of the racist some bitches who commented earlier, if we all were in this spot right here, right now, and y'all see that wind blowing, and y'all can hear the whistle in the trees, and we all just had some chairs and we sat here, we'd have a great conversation on how to improve ourselves as a society, how to grow ourselves as people, how to build and develop ourselves emotionally, spiritually, financially. When I say slaves built this nation, I don't say that to slight any other race. I don't say that to say that the white man's innovation didn't contribute to the greatness of this nation. I don't say that to say that the Chinese and Indian willingness to relocate to this country and build an entire railroad system to cross from coastline to coastline didn't contribute to the development of this nation, or for the Mexican laborer who came to the United States, who came to the United States and relocated in Southwest America and worked the crops out there in Arizona, despite under a system of debt peonage, that those people didn't contribute to the United States of America. I'll never take that away from them. But when I say that slaves built this nation, I'm talking about economically. The United States would not have survived as a nation, independent of Great Britain, had it not had the institution of slavery, had it not had crops such as tobacco, such as corn, such as wheat, such as cotton, such as sugarcane, that European countries were buying by the droves, and we were shipping to them and exporting, and the United States was benefiting from a taxable profit. And the people who worked those fields were African descendants of slavery. That's not made up history. That's not woke history. That's not even DEI. That's a fact. Hmm. Ain't that some shit? I'm sitting here swatting at these bugs. I done lost my sunglasses. Yeah, it's a waste of $20 because I ain't going back there to get them. What the hell are these bugs? Damn, I like them sunglasses too. I gotta go pick me up another pair. Yeah, what kind of crops are these? 'Cause I've been looking at them the whole damn time and I ain't figuring them out. But it's like it's at least 40 acres of these crops. I'm not in the forest, yeah. I'm in the woods. There's a difference. Shrimp, shrimp crops. Man, can you imagine that with such thing as shrimp crops, how bad that shit would be smelling when the sun hits it? And I thought Florida was hot. God, dog, it's hot up here. Damn, I missed my sunglasses. Now you up there talking about something. Hey, you breathing heavy. Look at that fucking hill I had to just walk up. Hell yeah, I'm gonna be breathing heavy. I had to walk three of them some bitches. But yeah, teach your kids or society will. So I'm almost back to my location and we're gonna be hitting the road pretty soon. So 3, 2, 1, gone. Y'all enjoy your day. And also, if you want to support the Fake Teacher Fund, the Cash App is up there. And then also, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Mel O, the Fake Teacher Podcast.